Obedience, the basis of the virtues. A homily delivered by our holy elder Ephraim as abbot at Philotheou Monastery on September 3rd, 1975. My fathers, so that I don't forget it, I would like to remind you about the subject of holy confession. You should not wait for me to call you for confession, but on your own, when you feel that you have a need, you should come either to church or up in the Kili until the time before Vespers. We must take care of confession because it is the key that opens paradise. No other thing can be compared with a clean confession. The devil comes and tells you that Yeranda has no time and you cannot see him now. He tells you that this thought you had does not matter. It is nothing. With all of this, he's trying to keep the man away from clean confession, which neutralizes him, the devil, completely. What excels in confession is that there is a complete and clean confession, and a confession without shame. As to how many good things there are that come from the redemption of thoughts, each one has his own personal experience. The devil, one way or another, always distances man from confession, even though the latter has the knowledge that he suffers double damages from being deprived of the benefits of holy confession. He suffers the greatest in enduring many falls. Such is the case of a nun who hid her consent to one of her thoughts. Even though she'd entered the monastery as a young girl, after her death, she was damned for this concealing. This was manifested by this nun appearing to her Yorondisa and telling her that she was condemned for concealing her small consent. God accommodated things in a way that the Yorondisa was able to learn about this event and teach the sisterhood to be careful of thoughts and to redeem them. The Apostle Paul was admonishing the Christians, telling them, "Obey them that have rule over you, and submit yourselves, for they watch for your souls, as they that must give account, that they may do it with joy and not with grief." Hebrews 13, verse 17. Faith and obedience are the basis for a disciple. They are the fundamental principles to which he must pay attention. But they are also the first things for which he's going to give an account before God. The whole structure that he will build depends on obedience. He must not disobey his spiritual father, and he must not grieve him, because it is not in his interest. Obedience is also very instructive and teaches immensely. On the contrary, when he obeys and is persuaded and gives rest to his Yeranda, does not grieve him, his rewards in the presence of God have no measure. There are so many examples in the earlier years, but also in recent times, convincing everyone that with obedience the disciple receives much grace. I have told you the following story another time, but I would like to relate it to you, to the newer brothers who have not heard it, and to help you understand in some way what obedience is. At Katunakia, there was a Yeranda named Kiro, who had a disciple named John. This disciple worried and grieved his Yeranda with his frequent disobediences. Of course, the Yeranda would lose his patience, and he could not commune because the disobedience of his disciple hindered him from Holy Communion. How could this man approach in anger to receive communion? At the same time, the disciple began not feeling very well physically. Before his total possession by the evil spirit, he was not doing very well at all. He was walking and acting like an unreasonable man. I know all of these things about this man from personal experience. He would go with our fathers Athanasius and Yosef to collect hazelnuts, but was unable to. He admitted the odor of sulfur, and you knew he was not feeling well. He had irregular, bizarre thoughts, and his whole condition was evident in his face. He would come to our Yeranda, Papu Yosef, to talk about his thoughts and to get advice, but he never obeyed in anything. Before his Yeranda died, he told him where to bury him, but he buried him elsewhere, in spite of the father's advice not to disobey again and at least fulfill his last wish. After he buried his Yeranda, the devil appeared to him, bragging about pushing him to disobey, and then totally possessed him. Since then, he went mad. When the fathers chanted the cherubic hymn, he was mocking them and making sounds like a wolf, like a beast. On one occasion, he took an axe and ripped the icon of St. John the Theologian. He ran around acting crazy, and then he would come to his senses for a time. One day at noon, we heard the sounds of a fox. Of course, we saw nothing because we were all inside. Father Yosef said to me, "Look at the impudence of this fox. It's midday and she's not afraid." I said to him, "It is not a fox. It is Father John." "Come on, Yeranda, you're jesting." "What we hear is not a fox, but it is Father John. Just wait a while. You'll see him." After a few minutes, he passed by the house, with head bent down. "Do you see him?" I said to Father Yosef. "I'm telling you all these things so that you will understand obedience and, moreover, for experience, because they will be very useful to you in the future." Another time, the same person came to my Yeranda to see him and talk about his problems. According to our arrangement in Yeranda's order, I was to disappear when a visitor came. When I saw him, I went to my keli and sat there. My Yeranda was sitting on a stool outside, and he came and sat there too. Because I knew from my Yeranda that this man was possessed, Yeranda was telling me these things for admonition and experience. I sat there listening, out of curiosity and for my own benefit, to hear what Yeranda would say. "Yeranda," he said, "when the demon possesses me, he lifts me up, he knocks me down. I say incoherent words, and I find myself a spectator of the things that my body does and my mouth says. I'm just a spectator, and I cannot do anything, and all the members of my body obey the devil." Yeranda told him what he wanted to tell him, and he left. When he left, I said to Yeranda, "Yeranda, how is it possible not to be able to resist and to view his body moving? I cannot understand this because I do not have the relative experience. But God wished to inform me so that I would know by experience how it is with a possessed man." That same night, while still pondering with this doubt, after I sat down on the stool with the noetic prayer for 3-4 hours, I decided to get up, check the time, do my kanona with the prayer rope, and then prepare some breakfast for the fathers. And even though I looked at the clock and decided to get up, my eyes closed, and I saw that I got up, but I hadn't gotten up. And I went to the kitchen, looked at the time, and went back to my prayer rope to do my kanona. When I stepped out of the kitchen to the opening in front of my keli, there at the far end of the opening was like a black cloud approaching like a sphere, rolling and coming at me, and it came inside me. It started to appear as if I were doing a dance, saying anything that came to me, and I see myself outside my body, was unable to resist and to overcome myself to not do these things. And I heard a voice telling me, "That's how it is with Father John whom you're doubting." I came to myself and found myself again praying. When Father Yosef and I were at New Skeet and were fixing the place up, we certainly had a lot of work and bustle. Well, the tempter put Father Yosef up to doing something to distress me. I would tell him, "Don't do this, it's not in your interest." In any event, God saw fit to give him personal experience to see that he must not act this way. So one day during Great Lent, while we were reading Great Compline, I was sitting in my stacidi, and he was on the Analogian reading. Suddenly he stopped, came over to me, and with fright he told me, "Yeranda, I'm being possessed." "Why?" "Look, every one of my fingers is becoming as big as my arm. The hand is swelling and becoming 3 or 4 times as big by demonic energy. I'm perishing. Do the sign of the Holy Cross over me. I'm going to be possessed. I did the sign of the cross on him and said to him, Go now to read Compline, and next time be careful not to contradict and not to have a different opinion than Yerunda, because it's not in your interest. And with the sign of the cross he was delivered. He recovered, came to himself, and trembling went back to read. The feats of a good disciple are very great. That is, those who obey and do not grieve their elder truly attain angelic achievements. For this reason, even though the Apostle Paul was teaching Christians, he stressed the basic virtue, obedience, and that we must give joy to the spiritual fathers with our spiritual progress. They watch, as he says, over our souls, and it is not in our interest to grieve and worry those people who struggle for our soul. When we do not find something in obedience, for example, let's say benefit or rest, something's not going well. Something somewhere is escaping us. When a disciple is admonished by Yerunda about this or that thing, let him not think that this is a simple advice, but in essence they are commandments. Even though they are not clearly stated as such, nevertheless they are. How is it possible for a disciple to be harmed obeying whatever Yerunda advises? For example, the Yerunda counsels and says, My child, be obedient and say the prayer, and send away the evil thoughts as soon as they come, because the more they stay and the more they settle down, the more they defile the place. But even if they leave after a time, they will leave behind spots and blemishes. Or another one, when the talenton sounds, you must go down to the church right away, and inside the church you must not move around easily, but be patient in your stasidi, and only in some great need may you move. When a man does not obey whatever his Yerunda tells him as admonishments and exhortations, he is in disobedience. Must the Yerunda clearly say, I command you to do this or that, in order for the disciple to be afraid and to obey? Well, of course not. Commands are given only in particular circumstances. When one comes to be a disciple, it is very evident that he does not come for the abbot or for the monastery. He clearly comes for the love of Christ, to obey Christ, and for the salvation of his soul. But since he does not see Christ in order to obey him, Christ left his representative, the abbot of the monastery, so that the disciple can show him the obedience he desires to show to Christ. Every spiritual father bears the image of Christ, and analogous as to how one obeys him, he obeys Christ. It is a terrible sin for one to act disrespectfully toward an icon of Christ or Panagia, the saints, and so forth. We should consider nothing to be worse than that. When there is an icon which represents a divine person and we venerate it, we kiss it, and the veneration is referred to this same person, the spiritual father bears the living icon of Christ, to whom the disciple is commanded to obey and to respect solely for the love of Christ, not for the person of Yerunda, because he might be a sinful man, or he might be condemned to hell like I am. But obedience has another meaning referring directly to Christ. Since the love of Christ called us to come here, to struggle and save our souls, we must by any means obtain this basic virtue, obedience, which also has a universal quality. When one sees a good disciple, that disciple for sure does not have only obedience, but he is surrounded with many other virtues and achievements as well. My blessed Yerunda gave us many examples in order to strengthen us in our obedience, faith, and love toward our Yerunda. One of those is the following. A Yerunda had a disciple who was very obedient, so much so that once when he was visiting Keriez, he got sick. This disciple brought him on his back across the mountain and brought him down to Katanakia where they lived. But somehow this disciple became affiliated with the Synodia in St. Basil's high up in the mountain, who were criticized by others because they communed often without previously fasting. So he was attached to them and wanted to leave his Yerunda and go live in solitude among them up on the mountain. His Yerunda would tell him, "Don't go." "No, I want to go." "My son, don't go. Pascha is coming. Stay here. celebrate the resurrection together. But he insisted, and even we bought eggs to take up there. Somehow the situation came to the point where Yerunda lost his patience. That was it. He told him that in the morning and then by afternoon the disciple developed a nasty pimple on his nose. Right away it started to swell, and he ended up visiting Father Arsenios, a self-taught doctor who had healed both Yerunda Yosif and me. Father Arsenios confided to us later that even though he could have helped him, he was somehow puzzled. And so after 3 or 4 days, the pimple oozed something like a pus which was deadly and life-threatening. The fathers were telling the disciple to be reconciled with his Yerunda for the love of Christ, to take his blessing with him and receive his forgiveness. He was angry, like a demoniac, and refused. But at the end, when he was about to expire, he was beating his chest and saying, I lost the game of my salvation. Yerunda was telling us many things like this because he knew many people from the past. For this reason, we monks must pay serious attention to this important issue. Also, there is a story in the writings of the fathers about a very good disciple who hadn't had much time under obedience to his Yerunda, but he was struggling well. Every day his elder would admonish him after the evening meal, giving him advice concerning obedience and about what he must do to be saved. One day, while they were talking, Yerunda got tired, fell asleep. The devil started pestering the disciple with thoughts, telling him, Go now. Since he fell asleep, why are you sitting there? Go to rest also, you're tired. How can I go? I must take his blessing first. But now he fell asleep. It doesn't matter, I'll be patient. He fought him 7 times to make him leave, but he didn't. After several hours, it was almost time for Orthos. Papu woke up and said to him, Didn't you go to rest? I couldn't without taking your blessing, Yerunda. Why didn't you wake me up? Doesn't matter, Yerunda. I tried to be obedient and patient. Fine. Let us start the Orthos now, and then you can go to sleep. After Orthos, Yerunda again went to sleep. He saw that he was inside a very illuminated room with a very brilliant throne. On the throne there were 7 glorious crowns. Yerunda was wondering, saying to himself, Who knows which great saint and holy man this throne is for, and what struggles must he have done to win these crowns? And as he was standing there wondering, a sacred man approached him and said to him, What are you marveling at, Yerunda? I'm marveling at the brightness of all these things, and I was thinking that this throne is for some great saint. No, it's not for any great saint. It's for your disciple. But this is not possible. He's a very young man, and he just came. He has not been here for a long time, and has he already been given a throne and received crowns? Of course. The throne was given to him at the moment he made the matanya of submission, and he received the 7 crowns today for resisting the 7 thoughts. In this way, every obedient disciple, no matter what he meets in difficulties and so forth, surpasses them with patience and forbearance and receives big crowns. Many times I've told you the following story, but briefly and with slight omissions. But since we're on the subject, I'll repeat it now to show you how much grace a disciple gets, being patient with labor, toil, and difficulties. You may remember this event even though many similar events have taken place. During Pentecost, on the day of the Holy Spirit, Papu sent us down to the loading dock to carry back a load. On such a great day when others were sitting in their homes, in their huts and kilis, reading and studying, we were on the road. As on every day, we also went that day to do heavy labor. But as I have told you before, I was caught up in many thoughts, and they were choking me and torturing me terribly, and I was thinking, what kind of obedience is this? The devil was justifiably attacking. Such a day, to be laden with such a load while others are sitting in their kili. Loads, loads, loads. Aren't the daily ones enough? But in spite of the devil's justified attack, I was resisting him terribly. I was responding to the devil saying, Our Christ says, Straight is the gate, narrow is the way which leadeth unto life. For I came down from heaven not to do mine own will, but the will of him who sent me. Therefore, since our Christ admonishes us, we must have patience to lift our cross every day. That is, I must do that which gives rest to Yerunda." "No," says the devil, "for the other days are okay, but not for this day. The disciple does not distinguish days. Since I am a disciple under the orders and commandments of Yerunda, therefore be quiet and get the work done." Meanwhile, the load that I had inside me was heavier than the one I had on my back. When I returned and went to take Yerunda's blessing, I was indignant against the devil for what he was telling me. He was trying to ruin my obedience and trying to steal my labor and my reward. "Ah," I said, "now I'll pay you for your labor, for the thoughts that you put in me." And inexperienced as I was, I put sharp stones down on the floor and spread a sheet over them so that they would not show. Of course, what I did, I should have told Yerunda, and I did not. But fortunately, God didn't take it badly because I did it out of much simplicity. And as I lay on the stones, they poked me in my sides to the point that I was afraid. "No," I said to myself, "Christ suffered on the cross much more than you. Anyway, have patience and do not talk now." Then I got up with much joy and delight because I found myself in a very beautiful place. To my left, I saw a beautiful tall mountain. At the top was Yerunda in prayer, and I was down below with Father Yosef, who's now at Holy Monastery. And in a moment, Yerunda said to us, "Look now, boys, Constantine the Great will come by. You must fall down and venerate him." We were waiting, and I saw someone turn and come toward me. There I fell down to venerate Constantine the Great. When I got up to kiss his hand, instead of Constantine the Great, I saw the Lord as a little boy, as he is in the arms of our Panagia, sitting up with the same little clothing, and in his presence I lost it. Without telling me anything, he kissed me on the face, and my soul was filled with delight. He did not speak to my brother next to me, nor did he look at him. He left smiling, and I remained in this great joy and delight. Right away I ran to my Yerunda and said to him, "This is what happened to me. Tell me what this is all about. What thoughts did you have during the day? Let me hear them." I told him the whole event, and he said to me, "This is how God consoles his servants when they struggle till death opposing the devil. So what you saw, this vision, theoria, was from God. And now go, take up the stones, and do not do such things again." Also, there was another war which rose up terribly against me, as a matter of fact, it visited me when I was still a novice. It threw at me a blasphemous thought about Yerunda, that Yerunda had a demon in him. And since it was from the demon, it was strong, and it persisted. Of course, as a novice, I was terrified and started a contrary war with this evil. We were fighting face to face. Yerunda was telling me, "Do not pay attention, my child. It comes in through one ear, you let it go out the other ear, and you'll be freed." Instead of doing this, I was somehow getting entangled and distressed by the thought which would enter like poison. Using opposite thoughts, godly thoughts, I was hitting back and was engaged in an awful struggle with it. The demon was a very great craftsman. The moment I opened my eyes, he threw the thought at me, putting poison in my heart to disturb and paralyze my vigil by not having a good disposition to do my prayer. However, I did not retreat at all. I was getting up and having a match with him. I would not let him gain even a foot. Yerunda, on the other hand, was there as a craftsman to psychoanalyze me, so to speak, as to my stamina, and to examine more deeply my internal condition. How are you going to come through with such temptations? What kind of temptations are these you're having? This one, that one, the other one. Will you be able to make it? Yerunda, either victory or death. Since I committed myself to the struggle for the glory of God, I will give myself to whatever end, 1 and 1 or 2, period. Well, when Yerunda heard all this, he understood, and this was enough for him. As a matter of fact, in 9 months, he made me a great schema monk. But I continued to struggle, I do not know for how long, with this ugly temptation engaging in a mighty battle at any given moment, understanding that it was a demonic thought that in reality had no substance. Finally, this thought disappeared, and I was never again engaged in a war against it, nor ever had this thought about Yerunda, not even a memory of it. It was uprooted, totally because it found the resistance it needed. For this reason, we must resist every thought we have until blood. As the Holy Apostle Paul says, "Ye have not resisted unto blood, striving against sin." Hebrews chapter 12, verse 4. Therefore, here also the struggle becomes bloody because we have to deal with the principalities and powers and so forth. And we must have such resistance, such valor, so that we will not lose courage at all. Once we know and are admonished that a thought is demonic, it's diabolic, it's full of passion, it's alien and foreign and so forth, nothing else is needed but mighty opposition to not let it go further. But the simplest and most effective way is not to engage in a conversation with whichever thought. But a contrary war can take place. It is also in the right line of resistance and opposition, however. This method is laborious, and at the end, Satan retreats and leaves fragments behind. While with contempt and brave prayer, the temptation leaves totally, and nothing remains from what Satan had previously brought us. So we must struggle as disciples near Yerunde. It is great security for one to be under the obedience of the Yerunde who dresses him in the schema. We must struggle as much as we can in this war of obedience. For this alone will you be crowned when you meet Christ, who will give to everyone the reward of his labor. And now, something about order. I always tell you to attend to your conduct and behavior amongst each other. One must not scandalize the other. Love should be brotherly and reciprocal. We must not try to embitter each other. We must try to be forbearing and patient with each other. When compline is over, take a walk around to get your water and leave to go into your cell to do something spiritual until you go to sleep, or else go to bed, sleep, and get up on time or even earlier to do longer vigils at night, which is the basis for progress and spirituality. The adornment of the young is silence and modesty. Scattered thoughts, boldness, laughter, talkativeness are stains on the character of a young man. Let us struggle, my fathers, because time goes by and does not return any more, and we little by little are guided toward the end. As when we read a book, on its last page we see the end. Similarly, when we end our life at the last moment, we will see the end, our death. And because we will depart for the other world, let us be attentive now in order to achieve our salvation and to meet with the fathers who are up in heaven. And may all this be achieved with the grace of God through the intercessions of our blessed Saint Joseph the Hesychist and cave dweller. Amen.